In my opinion, this is the best Anki deck you can find for starting learning Japanese. This deck is based on Tae Kim's Japanese grammar book, and the deck teaches you all the base grammar and vocabulary along the way. It's also not just a boring deck like a textbook, all of the sentences are taken from different animes and Japanese TV shows, which even keeps you entertained to some extent. Not only that, but this deck is also free, which is amazing. Some people said that it was hard to keep up with all the new vocabulary in the Jlab beginner course, so the creator of the deck made another supplementary vocabulary deck which teaches you around 500 words, so the progression and comprehension of the original Jlab beginner course would be easier. But I need to mention that this deck is not free, but more on that a little bit later in the video. I didn't need to use this deck because when I started learning with Jlab beginner course, I already knew around 600-700 words and a bit of grammar, so I had no problem with that. If you enjoyed the Jlab beginner course deck, then you can buy the other 3 decks which are a continuation of each other. Each deck consists of around 900 new flashcards, which also teach you grammar and vocabulary. The price for all that is very cheap, only 5 euros or almost $6 for all of the decks. It's a one-time pay, not a subscription, and you get access to the supplementary deck I mentioned earlier in the video, and these 3 intermediate decks. It's like getting 3 Big Macs, French fries and a Coke for only 5 euros, you won't regret buying it. You're getting study material for the next year to come with that, but that might vary depending on how much you study. This is a good deck if you want to focus on learning kanji, readings and vocabulary right away. I haven't used this deck, but I tested it and it seems pretty solid. If you are wondering which deck to choose, a popular Core 2K6K deck or Kaishi 2.5K, I would suggest Kaishi. It seems better, though I can't say for sure because I don't have much experience with this deck. But seems like people like it, so I decided to include this deck in the video. Also, this deck is currently accessible in different languages such as Russian, Indonesian, Vietnamese, Ukrainian, Brazilian Portuguese and Spanish. Gengo decks are very well made, they look absolutely amazing, and they are free, which is really surprising. There are many decks to choose from, grammar decks for different levels of Japanese, vocabulary decks and kanji decks. However, in my opinion, most of these decks are probably too overwhelming to a beginner. What I noticed is that there are often a lot of long, hard sentences, even though the deck might be called an N5 grammar deck. But these decks are basically Gengo's videos which were turned into Anki decks, so I would highly suggest to watch the original Gengo's video first and then start using these decks so it would be easier to understand the material and be more efficient. Numbers is one of the most annoying parts of every language, so you can have easier time learning it with this number deck, again from Jlab. The sentences with numbers are also taken from animes and TV shows, so it's a little bit more interesting to study. There are many community created anime decks which are also fun to learn. They are not complete decks in a sense that it's not the same as Jlab beginner course, for example. These decks take Japanese and English subtitles, audio and sometimes an image from anime and make it into a flashcard in Anki. When you go through these flashcards, you have to modify them and add translations of words and sentences you want to learn yourself. And as far as I understand, you can either do all of the translations and reductions manually, or you can use an extension that allows you to look up words in Anki itself and immediately create new flashcards. One of the extensions can be downloaded here. It might be pretty tricky to understand how it works at first, but I figured it out after reading guides and testing it. Now I want to say a few very important things. A lot of you will face burnout or have already faced burnout while doing your Anki cards. One of the most common reasons for that is the amount of flashcards that piles up after a few months of studying. Me and most of other people have run into this problem, and again, big thanks to Jlab, he found a solution how to escape that. It's better to read this article yourself, but I'm gonna give you a quick summary. Basically, delete your flashcards that you have learned well enough. It feels very wrong, and I didn't listen to this advice myself at first, but in the end I decided to test it and oh my god, it really saves you time and saves you from burnout, and you don't lose anything from it. To be more exact, as Jlab suggests, delete flashcards that show you 11 days or more on a hard button. If you encounter such flashcard, it means that you have already know the word well enough to spend any more time on it, and you can delete or suspend it without any worries. Not deleting these flashcards only slows you down, makes fake sense of progress, and pushes you into a massive burnout. I didn't add this deck because I don't like it in any way. I used it when I was just starting out and learned a bit of base vocabulary there, however I haven't finished it due to burnout. This deck teaches you base vocabulary and kanji with example sentences and audio. If you're an absolute beginner, you are going to have a hard time understanding the example sentences, but you can power through it and just learn the words themselves, which is also going to be beneficial, but not effective. That's why I don't really like this deck. Also compared to Jlab decks, Core 2k6k deck gives you one flashcard to learn per one word, which is also not really effective. Because of that, you might learn the word in the context of this exact flashcard and might not recognize it in a real world scenario, or not understand the word in a different context. Jlab decks usually give you 3 flashcards per word or a piece of grammar, which I found works amazing for more effective memorization and deeper understanding. Also, this deck often teaches you only one meaning of a word and doesn't even mention that there are other meanings to this word, which really confused me in the beginning when I heard the words I learned in another context. There are a ton of different variations of this deck. For example, some versions are called Optimized Core 2k6k deck, some are called Pitch Accent Focused Core 2k6k decks, etc. But honestly, I wouldn't suggest studying with any of these decks. If you know any other good decks for learning Japanese, please share it in the comments. See ya!